Hi, I'm Jonathan Carr-West. I'm a director at LGIU, the Local Government Information Unit. And I've been here today talking about councillors and their role in implementing the Big Society agenda. And there were 3 points I made in my presentation that I wanted to highlight. The first is that whatever our politics and whatever we think of the Big Society as a current initiative, there are long-term drivers in our society that are going to mean that citizens and governments are going to have to collaborate more closely to respond to some of these challenges, such as climate change, how we bring up our children, how we look after older people. These aren't things that government can fix by itself, and citizens will need to help in that process, and we'll all need to get more involved. That raises some key issues for councillors. Many councillors do understand what the Big Society means for them, and they see their role as changing, becoming more community leaders, facilitators, rather than making decisions on behalf of the community and simply returning to the ballot box for validation every 4 years. But thirdly, there are a number of concerns that raises for councils. There is a tension between greater participation and democratic accountability. How do we ensure that community groups that take over services and deliver Big Society initiatives are accountable, that they spend public money responsibly, that they're open to the whole community, that they're not simply the result of vested interests? All of these difficult issues mean that there'll be a vital role for councillors in holding the ring between competing interests, in facilitating the community to come to those decisions, in stimulating demand, trying to inspire people to take up Big Society opportunities, and in making sure that everyone's voice is heard and that strategic direction and thinking is fed into those decision makings. I think if I had one tip, therefore, to offer councillors on this agenda, is that they need to think hard about their role, to see themselves more in that facilitative role, and to try and really think about how they work with communities to make people want to take up these opportunities, to explain to people, to be a conduit of information and inspiration flowing from the council to the community, and equally helping the community to hold the council to account.
Hi, my name is Francis Davis. I'm an academic and social entrepreneur. Until recently I've been working as a ministerial advisor for the Secretary of State and the Minister for Decentralisation at DCLG, and what we've been talking about today is how the Big Society is not business as you've known it, but it's a revolution which has come to local authorities and to the rest of the state, which presents a huge opportunity for members, for officers and for civic bodies if they grasp it. The question though is, how do you use the rights in the Localism Bill? How do you use the opportunities? How do you use new models of finance to build something fresh? What's that going to mean for members? It's going to mean not just being a classic representative, but being a convener, an agitator, a social entrepreneur, someone who reaches up out of your wards and your resources and mobilises those together with fresh people locally, those that have spent too much time watching telly who can volunteer, those who've not given enough locally that ought to be giving more, and perhaps those who are suffering from the experience of unemployment that want to gain new skills and new opportunities by engaging in it. So, what does this mean for the future? It means look out for something new in any sector of the economy or the civic society where you think you can learn from something new. Don't expect to stay still, and turn to the younger and the older generation and say, together we can make a difference. Whether you're left, you're on the radical centre, or you're on the right, this is a revolution coming to you.
Hello, my name is Kerry Jones and I'm Head of Policy and Research at the Social Enterprise Coalition. The Social Enterprise Coalition is the national body representing social enterprises across the UK. I think if I was to think of 3 points about why social enterprise is so important at the moment, is that firstly it's absolutely critical to the Big Society agenda, whether it is about transforming services, whether it's about models of delivery that engage communities and engage staff and deliver services in different ways, or whether it's about delivering services that can join up multiple agendas and create value for money. I think those are the things that make social enterprise so critical to the Big Society agenda. I think there are a number of challenges facing elected members at the moment. I think there are a number of changes that are having to happen in a very short period of time with reduced resources, and it's finding how to prioritise what to concentrate efforts on. I think social enterprise is still not quite fully understood as a term amongst councillors, and I think there is a challenge for them to really understand both what the different kinds of models of social enterprises are and the different roles that they can play in their communities. And I think there is a challenge in it for councillors in getting that level of knowledge, while at the same time facing all of these challenges that they're facing with regard to local government budgets and timeframes and everything else. What tip would I give to councillors? I would say to councillors, go out and meet the social enterprises in your community. Find out who they are and find out what solutions that they can offer to the challenges you're facing, whether it's from delivering public services, regeneration, joining up different agendas. It's only by really finding the ones that exist in your locality that you'll be able to really get an understanding of what they need and how they can play a greater role in transforming your communities.
I'm Sam Breyer and I work for the Institute for Voluntary Action Research, and I've been involved in the Partnership Improvement Programme for the past 4 years. And partnership working has always been a key mechanism for the delivery of services, and it's quite clear from everything that's been written about big society that partnership working will continue to be so. We think that councillors are going to play an ever important role in partnership working, and that big society, with all of its emphasis on localism, on small communities, will be where councillors can have the most impact. I think the challenge for them comes in a number of different areas. We think that coping with new organisations that are not traditional third sector organisations but are more social entrepreneurs, social enterprises, the whole notion of social action and where that affects partnership working will represent a real challenge to councillors, but also an opportunity. If they are people that are in touch with their local communities, they can be part of that growing movement and therefore be key players in future partnership working.
I'm Helen Garforth. I'm a facilitator, trainer, educator. I work as an associate for IVAR. We've been exploring the changing context of public service delivery, looking at the commissioning cycle, and particularly at how councillors, elected members, can get involved in commissioning at its broadest in their local area. We've been looking at the change towards a much greater involvement of civil society in the whole commissioning cycle, from assessing the needs of a local area to co-designing the services, to delivering the services, and to monitoring and evaluating the impact of those services. We've specifically focused on the role of councillors in engaging the people on their patch in that process, in the design and delivery of the services that they will be using. The key challenge that has cropped up is one of capacity, and to quote a councillor I spoke to just now, she said, "This is really important, we really want to do it, I really want to make this central to my role, but I've got a limited amount of time." So capacity is something that councillors feel they're struggling with in order to fully engage in all possible ways their local community in these big decisions. A top tip that has come up would be, if you come up against a seeming brick wall of somebody quoting rules and regulations and EU legislation at you, it's worth having a bit more of a creative look at those rules and regulations and just see whether there are other ways of interpreting them. And you might well find that some of them are more myth than reality, and that there are alternative realities there that you can use to your advantage.
I'm David Faulkner, I'm the leader of Newcastle City Council, and part of my role in the past few years has been to lead on the agenda of community engagement and empowerment in the city. My theme really is about placing councillors at the heart of this process, rather than, as they sometimes feel, as the kind of victims of uncoordinated consultation and public opinion that isn't structured. So I'm very keen on having a proper structure to the process. In Newcastle's case, it's ward committees, it's neighbourhood charters, where people contribute their knowledge, their expertise, their views about what they want to see over the next few years to make their neighbourhood a better place. And it's the responsibility of councillors to take account of that, to deliver on those priorities and hold officers, the their colleagues and partner agencies to account. There is a big challenge, and it's about raising expectations. There's a risk that people will say, this is an enormous agenda, how can we tackle it all, particularly at a time when resources are running thin. And it is ambitious, and I think councillors have to be ambitious for their neighbourhoods, and I think we have to make sure that we get value for money from the process. But my principal tip is really that once you set on this course, you have to be committed, you have to go with it, and you have to make sure that your own personal skills are sufficient to be able to fulfill the roles that you have in that, whether it's dealing with conflict, whether it's helping people articulate their needs. It's absolutely important, and therefore a clear training programme is needed, and a good local authority will put that in place. I think you need to communicate the achievements so that people know what the outcomes have been and that the process is working for them on their behalf. And I think you have as a councillor to use all of your networks to make sure that your community is empowered and that the process is working.